This is Carla from MindPlore with Carla and Friends, and we are here today, like every Tuesday and Thursday. And today we are managing our mindsets. Now, everyone, until you realize that your mindset is what until you realize that your mindset is how you create your world, you kind of get stuck in all kinds of things that go through your mind. But once you begin to understand that your mindset is the major thing, and Pastor Billy, we really want to see your face and not your shoulder. Thank you. Your mind, once you change your mindset to create your world, then your world begins to change. And I'm going to ask Jeanne to take over for a few moments. And I am here. I have the wonderful Pastor Billy, who just returned from some countries. He can tell us which ones because I'm a little confused, not yet. And Victor, Irving,
Jenkins.
I am Jenkins. I'm having trouble with names today, but I'll get it. And I'm really anxious to do this conversation. Okay, Jeanne, while I do what we were talking about, please do what I need you to do.
All right. Well, we've been talking a lot about personal growth and what's in our mind for the last couple of weeks. And this should be a really fun conversation because mindset and managing your mindset tends to be what a lot of people talk about, but I'm not sure if they give it the right focus. And that's what I hope we can get into. So I pulled out a couple of quotes as I've been doing lately. And one that I hear a lot is Napoleon Hill. He says, whatever your mind can conceive and believe, it can achieve. It's great alliteration, but think about it. You have to think about it, conceive it. You have to believe it, know it can happen. And then you have to do something. And it's that do something part to achieve it that I don't always hear about. The other one that I thought would be good is from Wayne Dyer. What we think determines what happens to us. So if we want to change our lives, we need to stretch our minds. And I really like that one because stretching our minds is like, it's exercising. It's kind of like yoga, but stretching our minds lets us go beyond our own internally set boundaries. And with that, I want to kick that over to Victor, because Victor, you've talked a lot about attitude. And I think this fits into what you've been talking a lot about. So I wanted to start with you and then we'll go to Pastor Billy.
Well, I'll start with the downside. Here's the thing, right? We are accustomed to doing things. In fact, some people wonder why we're not called human doings, because we are always doing something instead of being something. But before you do something, you have to actually be something. So in the vein of doing something, we like to set goals, we like to accomplish things, and we use that as a measurement or as a yardstick as to how we are actually doing. But here's the difficult thing. Once you figure it out, you cease the drama in your life. You cease the unworkable problems in your life. You cease the difficulty. You put your mind in that place where it's like a smooth ride, right? Well, see, when that happens, then you have to be concerned with boredom. I saw a video once where they said that people that have a calm life have a boring life because they don't have anything to do. So once you get your mindset the way you want it, and of course, I like to have the mindset so that whatever turns up, I can handle it, fewer things turn up because what you resist persists. So as you go through to developing how to manage your mindset, that's really the most exciting part. And sometimes you get to that place where you can manage your mindset and you miss all the drama. So it's a bit of a window, a bit of a paradox, because no matter how you do it, you're going to want to do something. And so even if you are not at the place yet where your mindset is where you want it to be, go ahead and revel in the journey. Revel in the trip that you're taking to getting to where you fix your mindset, because it kind of gets like this: wash, rinse, repeat. Obstacle, overcome, and just rely on the fact that there's always going to be something happening. So your mindset, probably the best mindset you can have, is that I win, because that's mine. I win.
But are you saying that we have like an addiction to the drama, and then it's hard when we start to calm down and win?
I don't know that an addiction would be how I would frame it, but you notice things, and you notice when something's happening, and you notice when nothing's happening, but we all like something to be happening. Years ago, when Jesus Christ was alive and he was talking to his fishermen, he said, if you follow me, I'll make you a fisher of men. Now, you're already fishing, right? And so fishing is an enjoyable activity. But I think the true joy in life for me is bringing other people along so that they develop the mindset similar to mine. And so every day I try to infect someone with this tendency to believe that they win. And the more people I infect with that, the better my life is. So I may not be experiencing drama, but I'm helping other people experience their drama. And as a result, they have less drama. So if I can impact one person to stop having drama and have them impact one person to stop having drama, the drama will cease. But alas, you're never going to get everyone. So you can just enjoy the view of other people getting from their drama to the right mindset.
Well, it's interesting that you use the word infect. It's a very powerful word there. Pastor Billy, how do you respond to that?
Yeah, well, here's the expression that I use: mind your mind. Mind your mind. Just three simple words: mind your mind. You know, I have a lot of friends. They go to the gym and they exercise, and they're really like hardcore and 10,000 steps a day. And so they're building up their bodies, and they're probably eating the right things. They're staying away from the stuff that's not healthy for us, like processed and fast food. But the issue that I challenge them with is, are you taking care of your mind? Are you minding your mindset? And I love what you said. Napoleon Hill is one of my favorites, and as is Wayne Dwyer, as is the scriptures. As a pastor, of course, I'm familiar with the scriptures, and there's a great verse in the Christian New Testament that says, "Be transformed by the renewing of your mind." So, I believe body, soul, spirit, right? Body, soul, spirit. We are as human doings, or human beings. I love that, Victor. Human doings. Yeah. That we are three parts. We're mind, body, and spirit. So are we really paying attention to our minds? Are we training our minds? And so much, at least in Western culture, we're so busy doing what we need to do, make a living, or sometimes we get a lot of adrenaline rush from doing. And instead of just sitting down, thinking through our lives, where am I here today? And where am I going to be tomorrow? Where am I going to be next week? And so action is important. Hey, I just came from, Carla wanted me to just elucidate where I'm just coming from. I was gone for a month. That's why I was absent from MindPlore. And I went to Nigeria, Ethiopia, Egypt, and Turkey to help people, because that's what I do as an international Christian humanitarian. And when I was in Nigeria, I visited an orphanage, and I learned from the director, it's a poor place. It's in a city called McCurdy. The owner was selling the property, and the owner, or I should say the director, the owner was selling the director this just delightful woman called Favor. Can you imagine having a name like Favor? Favor, Favor. That's, man, you just got to spring out of bed in the morning with that name. And I said, well, tell me about what's going on. And she said, well, my orphanage is for sale. And she went into some of the details, and she said, yeah, it looks like 53 children are going to be displaced. And I looked at her and I said, Favor, I'm going to buy your orphanage. I said, how much? She said, $30,000 US. I said, sold. So now, because I was in the right mindset, and because my mind has been transformed to know effectively how to help people, my mindset, and I think this is what Victor was saying earlier, my mindset went into the mode of action. So the reason a lot of people don't act is because they've got the wrong mindset. They perhaps have a very negative mindset. And I always talk about people, if you're not born with the happy gene, you need to get it somewhere. You need to get infused. You need to get infected with the happy gene. And if you're not born with the happy gene, if you're always seeing the wrong side of life, or you always see things as problems, you have to see things as opportunities. So I've removed the word problem from my vocabulary, and I changed it to opportunity. So that's just a quick story. For me, the orphanage being sold and 53 children being displaced and back out on the street, that was not a problem. It was an opportunity for my mindset, which I've trained over the years to help people. And my mindset was changed 50 years ago. And then hopefully I'm being able to change it every moment of every day. So that's mind your mind. And those that are viewing, what are you your mind? Are you making your mind better? Are you paying attention to your mind? You might be paying attention to your body, but how about the mind up there in your mindset? So those are just a few of my disparate thoughts here today. Mind your mind.
Now, I really like how you changed the word problem to opportunity. I have changed it to challenge. It's a challenge. But opportunity is so much better, because you're going to move with an opportunity.
Yes.
When you realize that, when you're thinking of a challenge, well, do I really want to do it? So I should have called my laughter challenge a laughter opportunity, because it was an opportunity for people to use laughter as a way to move from their negativity to positivity. So I love that. I will never use the word challenge again. It will always be opportunity. Thank you, Pastor Billy.
You're welcome. Thank you.
For the next 2 days, it'll stay a challenge, but I am going to keep it going for 2 days a week, possibly, and I will change it to opportunity.
Very good.
Jeanne, you look like you have something on your mind. But wait, before you say that, that's a change in mindset and a change of looking at things. And we all need to learn to kind of take that little word out, like take no out, take not out, and change it to yes, I can. Because it's what we are thinking in our minds that keeps us from doing what we need to do. Okay, Jeanne.
Put your mic on, sister. We can't hear you.
Yeah, we can't hear you. So
but you look good. But you look good though.
Victor, do you want to say something? You're already talking.
I hate to take up her turn. However, the pastor The pastor came out with, be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, so that you know God's good will, acceptable, and perfect will for you. That is a mouthpiece. And if all we did was meditate on that and get the true meaning of that. You see, we're talking about mindset, but a mindset in many ways is your view of things. And you see view attitudes on the marquee behind me. And before I die, view attitudes will be in the dictionary. View attitudes is a word that I created, which basically means if you change your view, you could change your attitude. And you change your view by renewing your mind. And your mind is renewed by the stuff that you allow in. And you can't allow just any and everything in your mind. Speaking about your mind, the mind is separated into two components. You got your conscious mind and you got your subconscious mind. And you might think that because you have control over your conscious mind, that's who's doing the deal. But au contraire, mon frère, your subconscious mind is running your life just as surely as it's running my life. And the thing about your subconscious mind is that everything that has occurred since you were in your mama's womb is lodged in your subconscious mind, and it has the habit of just waiting to be triggered by something. Things that you have, like give you an idea. Now, if I were to say to you, each day through my window, I watch her as she passes by. And I say to myself, I'm such a lucky guy. To have a girl like her is truly a dream come true. Out of all the fellows in the world, she belongs to you. Everybody. But it was just my imagination once again. Now, none of us took the time to learn that song. None of us tried to remember the words of that song, but it was in there. And the reason it was in there is because our subconscious mind was exposed to that song over and over and over, so that all it needs to do is to be triggered. Well, our subconscious mind has been exposed to other stuff too. Other stuff that's not as benign as a temptation song. And when you get triggered by those things, your subconscious mind then takes over. Pastor's subconscious mind was keyed into a need, and it drew to him that need. It drew to him that opportunity to buy that orphanage, because that's where his subconscious mind lived. Now, he didn't leave home that morning saying, I think I'm going to go buy an orphanage. I'm sure that's not what he did. But over the course of his life, things that have gone into his subconscious mind has conditioned him and attracted opportunity to him. And so when the time comes for him to get triggered, he was right there ready. Let me buy this orphanage. And once again, it's not always empowering things that get triggered in your subconscious mind. Your subconscious mind's got stuff in there that you don't want in there. It's got stuff in there that you don't even know is in there. So when you go through the habit of renewing your mind, you got to constantly use your conscious mind to input data into your subconscious mind and let that be your view. Let that be your mindset. And somebody better stop me because I'm going.
Can you hear me now?
Gonna go from preaching to meddling.
What you were saying is so important, because we do get stuck in our subconscious mind. And if we could only work to set our subconscious mind to work with our inner vibration and our who we really are, and stop saying, I can't do that, although I want to do that, we begin to come in alignment with who we are and who we are supposed to be. Yes, Jeannie, talk.
You can hear me now, right?
Yes.
We can hear you for sure now.
I want to react to a couple of things, but I want to be a little bit more practical, because when I hear people talking about mindset, I usually walk away with, it's going to take a giant leap for me to do what they're saying. And I want to say clearly, it does not take a giant leap. It takes a small first step. So when Victor was speaking earlier, I was trying to come up with the phrase adrenaline junkie, but that's, when you've got all this drama going There's always a crisis happening. You feel alive because you've got to fix all these problems and people need you and nothing will work without you. And you just keep going and going and going. I worked in a PR agency, public relations agency, way back in a small era called the 80s when everything was exploding. Apple hadn't even gone public yet. And it was like every day there was some sort of crisis. And it felt like, man, what I'm doing is really important. In reality, once I got a little perspective, what I was doing was part of marketing. It wasn't, in the grander scheme of things, all that important. But what I learned being able to turn on a dime and fix a problem was to add perspective. For example, when a press release didn't go out, I used to say, look, guys, so we lost 2 hours. We can recover. We don't need to get all crazy about it. And I became kind of the Obi-Wan Kenobi of crises because I'd stay calm. And what I learned was to take a deep breath and to look at what's the real problem and then say, is this the real problem? Because there were some problems that I worked with that, you know, were life and death kinds of issues that I had to figure out how to message. But most of them, the majority of these crises were a product announcement didn't go out, or somebody couldn't make an interview and I had to find somebody else to do it. They weren't killing people kind of problems. So when I added that perspective, I was able to take some of the adrenaline out. And I realized at a fairly young age that when I had all these crises, I was just buzzing and feeling alive. And as Victor had said earlier, when things calmed down, I didn't feel alive. I felt bored. That wasn't good either. And so once I started to learn things like meditation or sitting and contemplating or setting a goal and figuring out how to reach that goal, even though it looked unattainable, I started to see that the adrenaline wasn't as important. But I have a lot of friends that still are in that adrenaline-fused lifestyle. And that's fine. That's their choice. That's what they're ready for. And then when they come to me and say, how come you're so calm? I can make a joke and say, you know, it's all about the medication. Or I could say, because I learned to breathe. And I like to say, because I learned to breathe. And I look at, as another thing Victor said, the perspective. And one of the things that, and I kind of alluded to this earlier, when people talk to me about things like abundance mindset, or how to become more effective in the world, they usually talk to me about setting up the thoughts in my mind. So that's the conceive part from Napoleon Hill, and how to believe, but they don't take it to the next level, as I said, and that's to achieve. And once you achieve it, how do you measure it that it was, so you know it was successful? You know, and those are the kinds of things that bring this to reality. So when somebody says, I can't, that gets you started with, you know, where you can start. And by changing their perspective, by simply saying, you know, in your case, Carla, look, you just gave me a very clear sentence that you don't feel like you can speak English. But in reality, I just understood what you said. So let's start from, I speak English, but I'd like to improve. You know, and that little step, which you do in your English, your speaking English, learn English by speaking English class, is huge, because people then get comfortable at practicing. And so when I'm thinking about my mindset, I have those moments. I have a friend who's an abundance coach, and she wrote just recently on Facebook that she had set an intention. And that's a really important, powerful word, intention. She set an intention, and then she found herself kind of swimming in a mindset that was just, I can't do this. And why did I think about this? And da 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 da. And you know, the Twitters that you get in your mind that just take over. And what she explored through this little essay she wrote was that it didn't matter all those voices, because she set the intention and she really was moving forward to this moment of abundance. And she had to work through in her head how to calm those voices down. And once she did, she saw that she didn't lose any time or any forward motion in reaching her goal. But in that moment with her mind going crazy, she thought she had. So her message to everybody that she's working with was, be aware of the little twitters in your head. Not, sorry, Jack, about Twitter, but that's, Twitter was a word before it was a company. But in those little things in your head that kind of distract you so that you can stay the course and keep moving forward. Sometimes we need those distractions to help us meet the challenges or opportunities in front of us. Sometimes we need those distractions just to say, hey, I need to change my perspective. So I like to think about setting your mindset, but looking at the little steps, because if we look at the big steps, then we let the committee take off in our head. But look at the little steps that you can achieve. So today I want to clean this, reorganize this room. Hey, I'm going to start with the desk. Today I'm going to clean this desk and do it, and then enjoy that success. And then it's easier to tackle the triple bookcase that's been, collecting things for the last 20 years, because that could be insanely crazy to look at, but you do those little steps. You buy the orphanage, that's a big thing, but I'll bet you there's going to be 100 little things that you're going to need to do to keep that orphanage, viable, so that it's a good investment and more kids can go through, right? And congratulations on that, by the way, Pastor Billy.
Yeah, thank you.
Wonderful. So I believe that what Victor says is true. You start with your attitude and you view your attitude, you change your attitude. And then you start with your goal, you view your goal, and then you move towards your goal. But it's that movement part. And that, that you might not think that's part of your mindset, but man, I've been thinking about writing a novel for 30 years. Am I ever going to write the novel? The answer to me has changed over the years. The answer is yes. Once I identify a story, it's like the joke about the lottery ticket. God, I really could use winning the lotto. I really need that money. And the sky opens and the voice comes down and says, lady, buy a ticket. Can't win the lottery if you don't have a ticket, right?
Right.
Oh, with that, and I don't know if you know about this, there's a guy who did a TED Talk, BJ Fogg, and his name sounds like, oh, what would he know? But it was an awesome TED Talk about taking tiny steps. And he has a book out called Tiny Habits. At least I think that's the name. And in the TED Talk, he said, you can change your mindset with one very simple, tiny habit every morning. And he said, you wake up, you sit up, you put your feet on the floor, and you say, it's going to be an awesome day.
Yes.
Just saying that, you are changing your mindset. You are changing your thinking.
Amen.
I tried it on a day that I wasn't feeling like, oh, it's going to be an awesome day. It changed my thinking the whole day. It's just that tiny little movement in
Yes.
the direction we want to go. One moment, and we go that way. Just like the orphanage that Pastor Billy just bought. Wow, now I have an orphanage. I have to feed kids. I have to do X, Y, and Z. Where do I start? You start, I don't know where he wants to start, but you start with one tiny step and move forward. Okay, Pastor Billy, you've been trying to get through for a while now.
Yeah, there's a great movie that, and I'm not a movie promoter in any stretch of the imagination, but there was a movie a number of years ago called "What About Bob?"
Oh,
You remember that? That was like the craziest, funniest movie. And what was Richard Dreyfuss, who played the psychiatrist, and I forget the guy that was coming, the actor that was coming to him for help. But if those viewing this, do you remember the actor who came to him for help? What
I want to say it was Bill Murray.
Bill Murray
that's right.
was
Bill Murray.
Sick. Bill Murray was sick.
Yeah, Bill Murray. Well, those that are viewing this, it's a good, clean movie. Your mind is not going to be damaged by watching this, but it's just funny. And what was the recommendation that the psychiatrist gave to Bob? What about Bob? And it was baby steps. And when we take baby steps within our mind, it really does. I mean, if you would have asked me 50 years ago, buy an orphanage, I would have, what are you talking about? But because I steeled my mind, that's STEEL, in order to help people. So that's why my radar, all of us have radar. And sometimes if we're minding our mind, that radar is going to be spinning around 24/7, 365, even, Victor, like you said, in our subconscious while we're sleeping, because we're dreaming about stuff. And I love to have dreams, and because I believe that God can reveal himself in dreams. But the point is that radar is spinning around, whether we're sleeping, whether we're awake, and it's picking up stuff that maybe we haven't seen before. But if we've trained our mind to be on the alert 24/7, then exciting things are going to be happening. And so, I believe that the greatest thing that prevents people from minding their mind is fear. And fear is something that can be broken. We can train our way out of fear. And so maybe 50 years ago, I would have said, you hear the need. I'm not going to buy an orphanage. I mean, is that crazy? I'm going to be responsible for these 53 kids. But hey, you know what? 3 weeks ago, I'm sitting there in a room with about 30 of the 53 kids in this tiny little hot room with a fan blowing and a generator going. And I just said, hey, I'm going to buy that orphanage. And then I'm going to delegate other responsibilities to other people. So it's a beautiful thing when you can release your mind, and the result of that is to help people, and hopefully their minds will be released. Well, and I'll conclude with this. Just think about, and I actually have a before and after picture of this crowd of kids in the office. And so I took a picture right before I was going to tell them I'm buying the orphanage. And then I took a picture right afterwards. And it was like pandemonium. I mean, they were jumping up and down. They were shouting. They were screaming. And they were just filled with happiness. So if we're minding our mind, it's going to make other people happy. That's it.
But I think first we need to make sure that we are keeping that vibration of happiness within ourselves. If we're doing it because Pastor Billy told me it'll make me happy if I go and buy an orphanage, and that's not going to be good for me as well as the people if I don't find it a positive event. I'm not saying I wouldn't buy an orphanage, but I'm saying.
But that's not what he's saying. He's saying
Right.
he was open to the opportunity and was able to accept it, just as when somebody approached you about starting a Facebook Live program, bringing bright minds together I think it was 4 years ago, you probably went, yeah, how could that be sustained? How do you do that? And look at you, bringing great people together, talking twice a week so that we can maybe influence somebody's thoughts down the way. I hope somebody who's having a really tough struggle with all the stuff going on. I mean, think about the world that we live in. Just, I'm going to use one word and that's enough. And that's called pandemic. We've not experienced something quite this bad, at least in the United States, for a long time. And yet we're coming through it because each of us, every single person, has had to contemplate, how do I manage? How do I get through? How do I do this without losing the essence of who I am? And even though some people have gone through the horrific part of losing loved ones, hopefully as they go through grief, they'll come back to that moment where we see life continues and life is good. There's always going to be crises that pop up, whether they're really deep, difficult things like this pandemic, or they're, something in our life like the car broke down and could be fixed, but God, why did I do this today? Why is, it's how we're going to react to that crisis and how we learn from it. So one of the most important things I think with mindset, when you think about believing and conceiving and achieving, is how do you get through? I can have some really big pie in the sky wants. I mean, I would love to be on a big stage doing a TED talk, but before I do that, I have to come up with what's my passion, what am I going to speak about, how am I going to present it to the TED talk people, and then are they going to believe that I can do it, and what do I do to practice? And there's all these things that go into it. It's more than getting up and speaking on the red dot, and it's breaking it down to sizable bites that I can chew on and work through. And if there's one thing I'd like to get across, is that we can do whatever we set our mind to. That's mindset. But it's the intention behind it, and it's the belief that we're going to be able to do it. And it's putting together that plan of all those tiny steps, and making sure it's not overwhelming. Or as Pastor Billy just alluded, that you can delegate to others to help you. And oh my God, let me say, if we can get a message out that it's okay to ask for help, that would be huge. Because there's a lot of what would be called lone wolves out there that, I can do this, I can do everything, I can do it. And what most really successful people will end up telling you is they had a team. It's not like they hired a team, because not everybody has enough money to be able to hire all the stuff. We're not all Kardashians, darn it. However, you have a team. Your team might be your family. Your team might be some really good friends that have been there with you and know how to hold you up. So when you've done something that's really great, they can celebrate it with you. Your team might be a bunch of folks who know how to do things to move you forward. I always wished that I had an agent and a manager like all of the celebrities do, because they would push me to do more, push me to do beyond what I think I can do.
Mm-hmm.
And once I can identify that something's beyond what I think I can do, then I know that's where I need to put my effort, because I can do it, whatever it is. But there's something in my head that says I can't. So now I need to push past that. I used to have a graphic or a meme before memes were memes. I put a picture of a wine decanter on a piece of paper, and I put decanter, like DECAN''TER. And then every time I thought I can't, I would look at that and say, it goes into the decanter. So that now it became I can. And that was one of those little steps that I took 20, 30 years ago. Those are the other main, what I call my Gestalt moment step, was when I learned that if I take 3 deep breaths regularly, I can calm myself down. I didn't know I could do that. A hypnotherapist asked me to do that as she was teaching me to manage stress because, I was a single working mom and I was always stressed. And the doctor said, you need to figure out how to manage stress. So he sent me to this hypnotherapist. And that's what she told me. I was like, I paid all that money for this to learn how to breathe. Well, I learned a lot. Once I learned how to take 3 deep breaths, then I was able to actually sit for 5 minutes in what they call meditation. I was surprised that I actually let go and those voices in my head went quiet. And that's a beautiful spiritual moment when you're just so quiet that you can be serene. And you know what happens when you get there? It's not boredom. It's beautiful. It's where creation is. After I learned to do that, somehow or another, a paintbrush got in my hand and I painted a picture that I still have. I will not give away because that, to me, that was a breakthrough moment when I painted that picture. It's beautiful. People think it's by an artist. And I go, yeah, me. I never claimed being an artist, but now I can. But it's from quieting it down my head. Pastor Billy, I'm sure at some moment you were deep in prayer when you heard a small voice that said, buy the orphanage, and you felt you could do it.
Actually, it was a very loud voice. It was like,
I would imagine
orphanage.
53 loud voices,
Yes. Yeah.
But my point is that until this moment, I didn't put those things together because we keep moving forward. We don't always contemplate and think backwards. But I think anybody who believes that they can't do something needs to understand. And once you say, I can't, you can't. But if you physically look at yourself in the mirror and say, you can, that changes the chemical reaction in your head.
Yeah, it does.
Pastor Billy.
Yeah, I want to recommend something to those that are watching, and I hope that they'll do this. Get a mind coach. I meet with a gentleman for 1 hour every week to train my mind, and I bounce things off of my brother Jeff, fellow follower of Jesus. And it is so refreshing. I come away from that hour-long meeting, and he's my coach, my mind coach. And, when we think about, and Jeannie, you mentioned this earlier, why do the top sports celebrities always have a coach? I mean, think about that.
More than one.
Or more than one, right? Exactly. I mean, every top celebrity, and it doesn't matter whether you're an actor or in sports, or it's crazy. And I always remind people, wait a minute, does Tiger Woods have a coach? Did Michael Jordan have a coach? Did Billie Jean King have a coach? Did Martina Navratilova have a coach? And yet they're at the top of their game, so to speak, at least from our perspective. Well, wait a minute. Think about this. If they need a coach, don't I need a coach? Me, nobody pastor who travels the world like a crazy man. Yeah, I need a coach. I need somebody to help me figure things out and to help me be better. And that's what coaches are for. So my brother Jeff is my mind coach. I take 1 hour out of the 168 hours that God has given us in our lives to help me train my mind to be better. So I'm recommending that to everybody that's viewing this. Get a coach, get somebody you can sit down with for just 60 minutes a week and bounce some things off of them. And I have this crazy little matrix that I use that I'm accountable to my mind coach for what I call the 5 F's: family, faith, finance, fitness, and fasting. I do a lot of physical fasting to train my mind as well. So I'm accountable to my mind coach, Jeff, family, faith, finance, fitness, and fasting, the 5 F's. So get yourself a coach. I'll be quiet.
You don't need to be quiet, but you made me, Jeannie brought up something. You said 4 years ago, MindPlore will be in existence starting 2 years ago, the first week in November. But it was somewhat, yeah. Well, you don't know the history behind it, but I want to just mention it. Leif Edvinson, I interviewed for Rehan 2 years ago. Yeah, it was before MindPlore started. And he said, I think you should start something like a brain gym for people, 15 minutes a day, and talk about changing your mindset. Well, I was going through a period where I needed to change my mindset. And if it hadn't been for that, this would not be happening. I grabbed the opportunity. It was the beginning of that change of mindset that I'm still working on. But if you go to my YouTube channel, you'll see I have a list, 53 days, where I went online and I talked about mind change and how my mind changed and how it was to change my mindset from a negative one to a positive one. I'm not sure it's as negative as some others, but it was pretty negative. And anyone can do it. If you only make that decision, I want to change. And it's a flipping of a switch. For everything that you think is negative, there's something positive. For every time someone doesn't show up for an interview, I think, okay, I have another half hour to use, maybe to do laundry, or maybe to walk the dog, or something very simple. But beginning to look at things like, oh no, I'm so mad that person didn't show up, to how can I use these few minutes? And it takes time. It's a building of a muscle. It doesn't happen overnight. And believe me, I have learned that over the past 2 years. It takes time to change the mindset. Victor, you've been quiet, which scares me, so.
Hey, I'm just practicing because I have no trouble opening my mouth. When I was a boy, they called me Mouth Almighty. You know, we grew up as Christians, but they called me Mouth Almighty. They weren't trying to be flattering when they called me Mouth Almighty. But one of my things in life is I want to be a better listener. So I am very good at listening. However, I listen for a selfish reason. I only listen so I know how to sell them on my ideas. That's just how I roll. When the pastor was talking about fear being an obstacle to people taking those baby steps, you know, that rang true with me. I suffered with fear and panic and anxiety attacks for 15 years. Wow. 15 years. And at one point, I thought I was going to have to blow my brains off. But here, on the other side of that, the caveat is, now that I've gotten past that, I'm kind of really confident about my ability to handle anything. I seldom get frazzled. I seldom get my world rocked, because whatever's going to happen, I'm going to manage it. In many cases, when people share their particular situation in life with me, I have an obvious solution, because I truly believe that the solution to all of our problems is in our head and the way that we manage our mindset. Here's the difficulty I see. While fear might be the most insidious obstacle that human beings need to overcome, from the time we're children, we're actually managed by fear. Our parents put the fear of God in us. And then when we go to school, nobody tells us about fear. And of course, you think, if you are not having an experience with fear, why bring it up? Some people will describe that as being something negative. Look at it this way. If you were teaching someone to garden, if you were teaching someone to grow something, would you avoid talking about the presence of weeds? I don't know anyone who's ever planted weeds, but they are everywhere in everybody's garden. Everybody has to handle the weeds in their garden. Our minds are like a garden. Our minds are a place where the seeds are planted. And this fear that you're talking about, that is the most ubiquitous weed in our minds. And that's what we need to do. So despite renewing our minds and planting good seed, we have to actively root out the fear. We root out the fear by a constant dose of positivity, by a constant dose of what I call spaced repetition. I love myself. I love myself. I love myself. I love myself. You can do that anytime. And see, when you love yourself, certain things occur as a result of you loving yourself, and none of them are bad. Most often they're good. In fact, if you love yourself enough, truly love yourself enough, you will attract more love into your life, and you'll attract more people in your life that love you. And out of the blue, people will just gravitate toward you. They'll move toward you, all because you decided to root out the fear. You don't have to have an object of your fear. You don't have to have something that you think of that's something that you fear. If you have not gone in and renewed your mind and rooted out the negative, self-destructive thoughts in your mind, if you haven't gone in there and got them, they're in there, and their address is Subconscious Mind USA. And you got to get them out of there by the use of spaced repetition. So yeah, I was quiet. I was taking in what they were saying. And oddly enough, I have managed to attract people into my life that think a lot about things like I do. That's to come here all here, that's to come here all here. How many instances of a gathering of 4 people where they're not arguing or they're not picking apart each other's points of view? And you know why? It's because I've attracted all of us, and all of us has attracted me. So you see, I'm going to now demonstrate my most recent talent, and that's actually being quiet. Let somebody else say something.
And you know that listening is as important, if not more important, to be a part of a conversation. So, Victor, not only did you nicely summarize everything we've been talking about today, you did it by using listening as a skill, and you listened very well. And then you spoke beautifully about what mindset is. And I want to congratulate you, because people were listening from the Learn English by Speaking English page may have learned how important listening is in order to speak well in a conversation. Thank you so much, Victor, and congratulations for realizing that. It's a big step forward. Okay, having said that, we are closing in about 3 minutes. If Pastor Billy wants to say a few last words, very short, or Jeannie, this is the time.
Yeah, I'll jump in and then give the rest to Jeannie. 3 quick thoughts. Mind your mind. Cast out fear. And number 3, mind your mind, cast out fear. Number 3, get a mind coach. That's it. Back to you,
And
Jeannie.
if you wanted to do acronyms, Mind Your Mind would be MYM. What was it about fear? Tell me that again.
Cast out
fear. Cast out fear.
COF. COF. And the last one?
Get a coach. GAC. Very good. MYM, COF, GAC.
Can you do me a favor and put that in the MindPlore group, because I want to remember those.
Got it. Will do.
Because as you know, my memory doesn't always remember the acronyms. Jeannie?
I just want to remind folks that as we go through this, to remember to take baby steps, but to take action. You know, figure out what it is that you see in your mind, believe that it's achievable, and then take those baby steps. And celebrate every time you do a great baby step and you conquer it. Celebrate so that it reminds you things are moving forward.
And what you may do to celebrate is say, you are awesome. Because you are awesome every time you take a baby step. And we will be back on Thursday to continue that discussion. I believe we will have Cameron Risby and Neville Gaunt, and maybe a surprise guest. We shall see. And with that, let's wave goodbye. And we are going, once I find my